Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 7, text number 5. Ije cha bhagavantam yagna kratu rupam kratubihi uchavachaihi shraddhayahrita agnihotra darsha purnamasa chaturmasya pashu somanam prakriti vikriti bhir anusavanam chaturhotra vidhina. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. With great faith, King Bharata performed various kinds of sacrifice. He performed the sacrifices known as Agnihotra, Darsha, Purnamasa, Chaturmasya, Pashu Yagna, wherein a horse is sacrificed, and Soma Yagna, wherein a kind of beverage is offered. Sometimes these sacrifices were performed completely and sometimes partially. In any case, in all the sacrifices, the regulations of Chaturhotra were strictly followed. In this way, Bharat Maharaj worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Animals like hogs and cows were offered in sacrifice to test the proper execution of the sacrifice. Otherwise, there was no purpose in killing the animal. Actually, the animal was offered in the sacrificial fire to get a rejuvenated life. Generally, an old animal was sacrificed in the fire and it would come out again in a youthful body. Some of the rituals, however, did not require animal sacrifice. In the present age, animal sacrifices are forbidden, as stated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ashvamedam Gavalambham Sannyasam Palapaitrikam Devarena Sutotpattim Kalau Pancha Vivarjayet. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. The offering of a horse in sacrifice, the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. Such sacrifices are impossible in this age due to the scarcity of expert brahmanas or ritvijaha, who are able to take the responsibility. In the absence of these, the Sankirtana Yagna is recommended. Yagnai Sankirtana Prayair Yajantihi Sumedasaha. After all, sacrifices are executed to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yagnartha Karma. Such activities should be carried out for the Supreme Lord's pleasure. In this age of Kali, the Supreme Lord in His incarnation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should be worshipped with His associates by performance of Sankirtana Yagna, the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. This process is accepted by intelligent men. Yagnai Sankirtana Prayair yajantihi sumedasaha. The word sumedasaha refers to intelligent men who possess very good brain substance. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 7, called Activities of King Bharata. We have been reading about how he was ruling, Maharaja Bharata was ruling his kingdom. It is particularly mentioned in the previous verse. Maharaja Bharata was a very learned and experienced king on this earth. He perfectly ruled the citizens, being himself engaged in his own respective duties. Maharaja Bharata was as affectionate to the citizens as his father and grandfather had been, keeping them engaged in their occupational duties. He ruled the earth. And in today's verse, with great faith, Shraddhaya, King Bharata performed various kinds of sacrifice. Yagna kraturupam kratubhir. He performed sacrifices known as Agnihotra, Darsha, Purnamasa, Chaturmasya, Pashu Yagna, Soma Yagna. All of these yagnas are listed here. Agnihotra, Darsha, Purnamasa, Chaturmasya, Pashu, Somanam. Sometimes these sacrifices were performed completely, Prakriti, Vikriti Bihi, completely, and sometimes partially. In any case, in all the sacrifices, the regulations of Chaturhotra were strictly followed. Chaturhotra Vidhina Anusavanam Chaturhotra Vidhina. In any case, was strictly followed. In this way, Bharata Maharaj worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ije cha bhagavantam yagna kratu rupam. In this way, Bharat Maharaj worshipped the Supreme Lord. Basically, seeing from the previous verse to this one, the previous verse emphasized that he ruled the citizens, being himself engaged in his own respective duties. And he also kept all the members of his kingdom, all the citizens of his kingdom, engaged in their occupational duty. And in the purport, Prabhupada mentions, no one should remain unemployed or unoccupied in any way. One must work as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra on the material path and on the spiritual path. Everyone should act as a Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyasi. Although formerly the government was a monarchy, all the kings were very affectionate towards the citizens, and they strictly kept them engaged in their respective duties. Therefore, society was very smoothly conducted. Uruvatsalataya sve sve karmani vartamanaha prajaha swadharmam anuvartamanaha paryapalayat. So this principle that one should do one's duty, and one's duty according to material requirements is determined according to the varnas, and one's spiritual duties are determined according to the ashramas. Varnas are determined not by birth, Chaturvarnyam maya shrishta guna karma vibhagashaha, according to one's qualities and according to one's profession, according to one's guna and karma. the different kinds of varnas are determined. And according to one's situation in their life, either as a brahmachari, or a grihastha, vanaprastha, or a sannyasi, his spiritual duties are determined. And in this way, if a person is performing his material and spiritual duties, then he will make spiritual advancement. This is the sum and substance of the Varnashrama principle. Varnashrama acharavataha purushena parah puman. Vishnur aradhyate pantha nanyat tattoshanam. So this is the Vishnu aradhana. Vishnu aradhyate pantha. This is a way of worshipping Vishnu. It is a Vishnu aradhana method. What is it? Varnashrama acharavata. A purushena, a person who is engaged in the varnashrama activities or duty. Parah puman, the Supreme Lord, Vishnu aradhyate pantha. Parah puman, Vishnu. Vishnu is the Supreme Person. His aradhyate, he is worshipped in this way. And there is no other purpose, there is no other intent than to tat haritoshanam, to please Hari. So, this is the method of general spiritual advancement that was recommended and was followed for thousands and thousands of years in our country. And then, about 500 years back or 600 years back, an industrial revolution began. And that industrial revolution spread all over the world, and it came to India too. And then India also became influenced by that revolution to different degrees. It was a slow, gradual evolution. And then there were invasions, foreign invasions coming to our country. Even before that, there were invasions had happened. Much, much longer too. And kings looking out for more bigger kingdom to conquer, to rule, to get more wealth, and so on. And so the Indian subcontinent was also subjected to these. And then there was the British and many other, Portuguese also came, Britishers came. And Britishers were the most successful colonists in different parts of the world. And they conquered. And then they brought British, naturally the industrial revolution ideas into India. And when all of this happened, and then later on there was the independence movement, and then the Indians started ruling themselves. And then the leaders, the political leaders, they were all mostly educated abroad, and they were also influenced by these ideas, and they started implementing those ideas that we must have more industries, then people will have jobs. And all of these ideas are further expanding. And today, in the last 10 years or so, there is a new revolution called the digital revolution. Industrial revolution took 200, 300 years to gradually expand its influence. But digital revolution, it is disrupting and influencing at a much, much faster pace. So these are all the things that are happening. Now, in this situation, how do we understand these principles of Agnihotra, Purnamasa, Chaturmasya Hotra, Pashu, Somana, etc., etc.? How do we understand all these things is the question. So, but the principle of doing one's duty, material duties and spiritual duties by which one can worship the Lord, still remain. That is what our acharyas point out, Srila Prabhupada points out. Because that's mentioned by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. After Krishna, this is in the 18th chapter, Krishna talks about this is about the qualities of a Brahmana, about the qualities of a Vaishya, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Just before that, Krishna begins to say, Sve sve karmanya bhirataha samsiddhim labhate naraha. Sve sve karmanya bhirataha. You see in this verse also, Sve sve karmani vartamanaha prajaha swadharmam anuvartamanaha. This principle of sve sve karmana abhirataha, sve sve karmani vartamanaha prajaha swadharmam anuvartamanaha paryapalayat. This principle that Bharata Maharaja followed, engaging all the people of in his kingdom in their respective duty. Sve sve karmani. The similar principle, Krishna is saying, Sve sve karmanya bhirataha. When one is engaged in their own duties, samsiddhim labhate naraha. Naraha, human beings, samsiddhim labhate. They can attain perfection. Swakarma nirataha. In this way, swakarma nirataha, engaged in one's own activities, siddhim yata vindhati tat shrunu. How one can attain siddhim vindhati, yatha siddhim vindhati, swakarma nirataha yatha siddhim vindhati tat shrunu. Now I'm going to explain. Krishna has said. This is how Krishna begins this part of the 18th chapter. And translation. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. And in the next verse, Krishna describes the principle. How does that happen? Yataha pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindhati manavaha. So here Krishna begins to say, Yatha pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tam abhyarcha. Swakarmana, by one's own duty, by one's own work. Tam abhyarcha, he is worshipped. Who is that he? Krishna qualifies. Yataha pravrittir bhutanam. He is the source of all creations. Yena sarvamidam tatam. And he who pervades everything. He is the source of everything and he pervades everything. Swakarmana tam abhyarcha. If one performs his own duties and worships that Lord who is the source of everything and who is all pervading, siddhim vindati manamaha. He attains perfection. And in this, translation, by worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings, bhutanam pravrittihi. Pravritti here means source or the cause, source of all beings, and who is all pervading. Yena sarvamidam tatam. Tatam means to pervade. Man can in the performance of his own duty, swakarmana, attain perfection. Here, by worship of the Lord, tam abhyarchya. In the same way, in the Bhagavatam verse that we are reading, although it is listing all these different kinds of sacrifices Bharata was performing, what was his intent? Ije cha bhagavantam. It was for worship of the Lord. Bhagavantam ijyate is to worship, is to recognize, is to serve, is to please. Ije cha bhagavantam yagna kratu rupam. In fact, Vishnu is described as yagna kratu rupam. He is the personification of all yagnas. And in this way, he was ruling, and that is how Bharat Maharaj is described. So, now this principle of swakarmana tam abhyarchya, by doing one's duty, one should serve the Lord. This was the principle. In fact, if you see, in the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Raya, which happened on the banks of Godavari, it's a very, very significant, very important conversation that happens. It's a very interesting and unique conversation in the sense, usually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatana Goswami for 2 months on the banks of Ganga in Kashi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Rupa Goswami on the banks of Prayagraj, Triveni, Sangama for 10 days. So, there were many instances where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed, but in this, with his conversations with Ramananda Raya was was known to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he had told Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when you're going on a South India tour, in this place, please meet Ramananda Raya, and he is an elevated soul. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meets Ramananda Raya, and they have a conversation. And in that conversation, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking questions, and Ramananda Raya is answering. Of course, Ramananda Raya is a great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu too, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspired him to see. It's a very interesting conversation in the sense, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings out his philosophy, his theology, how to read the Vedic literatures. Otherwise, it may look like Vedic literatures are so vast, so many things are mentioned, so many sacrifices are mentioned. What is the purpose of all these things? So, in this conversation, Ramananda Raya explains, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the question, what is the means for attaining perfection? The highest perfection of a human being. And Ramananda Raya, first answer he gives is this one. Varnashrama acharavata purushena parahpuman vishnuraradhyate pantha nanyat tattoshanam. So, by performing of the Varnashrama principle, because human society, according to the Vedic culture and Vedic understanding, human civilization begins when the society is divided according to Varnas and Ashramas, and their duties are prescribed, and they all perform their duties, which is a means of worship of the Lord. Swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha, by which one can attain perfection. If this is not there, if Varnashrama is not there, then if there is no regulated division and duties assigned in a human society, it will slip into a degraded civilization. This is the basic principle. And hence Varnashrama was very strictly followed in every part of our country. Of course, it's all lost because of the influences of invaders, and for 2,000 years these invasions happened. So you can imagine a civilization which has gone through such invaders who had no idea of our Varnashrama and the Vedic culture at all. They had no such understanding. And they came to rule, and they started making rules, and they started deciding so many things. So this kind of a thing has happened, and as a result, this Varnashrama principle, the Vedic culture, got degraded. And now, in that situation, before the Britishers invaded, the Muslims had already invaded and had begun to occupy in different parts of the country. At that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared. The Lord himself has appeared. Already the decline of the Vedic civilization has begun. And now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is looking, this is the civilization, and now I want to give them the highest knowledge, the highest perfection, which is Krishna Prema. So how do I introduce this? So for these people to attain that highest perfection, they need a very, very potent process. And so in this conversation, all these principles come out in the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Raya. And so when Ramananda Raya mentions that this is the Varnashrama Acharavata Purushena Parapuman Vishnuraradhyate Pantha, in this way one has to do. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Iha Bahya Raya, this is external. Age kaha, speak further, something higher, can you please speak? And then Ramananda Raya speaks something higher than Varnashrama. And the next principle Ramananda Raya introduces is, okay, now let's analyze. Prabhupada explains in different places why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected the Varnashrama principle. Not that he rejected in the sense that it is not practical, it is not relevant, it has its limited impact in the Kali Yuga situation. Srila Prabhupada analyzes this. The first reason is that in Kali Yuga, under the influence of Kali Yuga, the Varnashrama system is degraded. In another place, Prabhupada uses the example, the Varnashrama principles has been jeopardized in Kali Yuga. It has been harmed. Its original intent has been destroyed. Another important thing about Varnashrama is sacrifices. Here you see, the king was performing all these different sacrifices. What is the principle of sacrifice? Very nicely, Prabhupada explains. Principle of sacrifice is to recognize there is a Supreme Lord and we must act to please Him. A place where this principle is Brahmavartha. Brahma Avartha means a place where the Supreme Lord resides. A human society is supposed to be a Brahmavartha, where the Supreme Brahman means Supreme. The Supreme resides. The Supreme reigns. There is a recognition of the Supreme's reign and control in the society. That recognition of the Lord is the basic principle of the sacrifice. And it takes, for the Brahmanas, it takes the form of doing different kinds of sacrifices. And these sacrifices are many times in the Vedas, it is for the devatas who provide the necessities in the human society. Shine, rain, wind, and prosperity, overcoming enemies, having good progeny, having good wealth. How to get all these things? By satisfying the devatas. And this was a preliminary understanding of recognition. When somebody is more qualified, he will understand who these devatas are and who is controlling the devatas also, and who is the ultimate Lord. That's a much more advanced learning, because human beings come to this world with a desire to enjoy. That's what the conditioned souls are. And now how to regulate them, regulate their enjoyment tendency, and how to help them advance. This is the purpose of Vedic civilization. So when yajnas are performed, and when the society has accepted that we must perform yajna, like that's the way we are all brought up, isn't it? In Hindu families, our parents would take us to some temple, maybe demigod temple, or would take us to some holy place. So when this culture is there, that we must recognize God. Temples were there. We go to a temple, we worship, we do some vrata, some kind of a thing that we were all engaged in. That implants in the conditioned soul's mind that there is somebody higher than me and I must recognize. And in the Vedic culture, another thing that we were also taught, see, you be careful about punya, papa, don't do papa, you do punya. If you do punya, you will get happiness in this life and in next life also. This understanding is there, isn't it? When we have this, when the conditioned soul has this understanding that I must do good things now, it will bring good prosperity now, I'll get the blessings of various devatas, and I will have good life in my next life also. You see, there is a controller, there is a supreme controller above us, is implanted. Another thing, a preliminary knowledge that we are eternal. We are not this body. We are actually a spirit soul who lives on to another life, and there is life after that. In other words, there is a principle of eternality of the living entity gets also implanted. Just see how this is all part of the karma kanda. But in that karma kanda, this spiritual learning is happening. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's concern was, although this is true, but in Kali Yuga, this is all degraded. It is not practiced properly, as we see in our society today too. Brahmanas. So Varnashrama society was to recognize the Lord and to inspire people to advance in spiritual life. In modern day, who is interested in Varnashrama? And Varnashrama is not intended. Who is interested in pleasing the Lord? Everybody wants to please his own senses. Recognition of the Lord and pleasing the Lord, that principle is not there. So, and because of that, there is simply exploitation, and then all these different kinds of influences and invasions have come about. Now, what is the use of just doing some agriculture, all these things? Now let's work in an industry. We'll get more money, and with that money I can buy more sense gratification. All these ideas have become dominant in every part of the world and even in our country. Leaders, governments after government, they promise more industrialization, more jobs, more so that this is the kind of an understanding that is very strongly prevalent. So you can see how Varnashrama is completely degraded. Second reason Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also explains, Prabhupada explains, is that the process, these Varnashrama processes are very slow. It is to it is a multi-life program. Many lifetime it will take for you to gradually understand. If somebody is a Shudra, many lifetime, he becomes slowly a Vaishya, then he develops the qualities of a Kshatriya, then he develops the quality of a Brahmana, and then if he is fortunate, he will become a Vaishnava, and then he can make... It's a very slow process in this degraded age, when there is so much of sinful opportunities for sinful activities. Living entities will get strayed away from this, and hence this is not very practical. Third reason Srila Prabhupada explains is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's interest is to quickly bring this understanding about the living entity's true position, who is transcendental to the material world, and take to the process of transcendental devotional service by which one can attain perfection. This is very slow, and the Varnashrama principles are within the modes of material nature. Brahmana is classified according to his certain modes, Kshatriya, all these are according to their different modes and their duties which come with their modes. And by these performances of these duties, they will worship Vishnu, they will recognize Vishnu. These are very slow. And hence Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regarded this is external. Iha bahya raya. Tell me something more profound, something more. The second thing that after Ramananda Raya answered this, the next thing that Ramananda Raya says is not the Varnashrama acharana, but now he says everything we should sacrifice everything and offer to Krishna. And you see, after Ramananda Raya tells a principle, to justify that, he quotes a verse from the Shastra. So, one principle after another principle Ramananda Raya is explaining, higher and higher and higher, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking him, tell something higher. And Ramananda Raya, at every stage of that discussion, he's quoting from the Shastra. According to this is what it is. So, in the next verse, Yat karoshi yad ashnasi yad juhosi dadasi yad tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever we do, whatever we offer, whatever we eat, in all these activities, we must do it as an offering to Krishna. That was Bhagavad Gita. So, Ramananda Raya explains like this. This is the higher principle than Varnashrama. In Varnashrama, there is no clarity to whom, all different people are there. And especially in Kali Yuga, it's all going to be mixed up. So, the higher principle is this one. This also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not happy. He says, this is also tell something even higher. And then Ramananda Raya says, to sacrifice, to give up the prescribed duties, and to worship Krishna, sarvadharman parityajya mamekam. You see, like this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspires Ramananda Raya to describe higher and higher principles. And now, the next thing that Srila Prabhupada explains, Prabhupada talks about all these modern day influences that have come about, and so duties have all changed. There are no Brahmana duty, Brahmanas are not there are no Brahmana duties, but in some form, politicians are there, businessmen are there, common people are there, some wise people are there. So this because these natures cannot be removed. This nature will always be there. Chatur varnyam maya shrishtam. Guna karma vibhaga. Krishna has created this. So it will always be there in some form or the other. So there are multiple duties. In this circumstance, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings this principle that yajna has to be performed, and that yajna for this age is the Sankirtana yajna, chanting the holy names of the Lord. And taking this principle, keeping this principle, and sve sve karmana tam abhyarcha, Bhagavatam presents this idea that sthane sthitaha, you remain in your situation. You do your duties that is expected of you in the society. Along with that, chant the names of Hari. So be in your own duty, perform your own duties that you have to do, and chant the names of the Lord. Sankirtana yajna you must perform. So this is the important principle that comes out, and this principle Srila Prabhupada went around preaching everywhere. And Prabhupada wanted a small section of the population to take this very strictly and come to a Brahminical practices and be a proper Brahmana, and that is the temple life that Prabhupada expected, which will inspire more and more people in the society to take to Krishna consciousness. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further he said, 5 things you must do. Then you will definitely make quick advancement in spiritual life. And that is, you should associate with sadhus, you should hear Bhagavad, you should chant the holy name, Nama Sankirtana, Sadhu Sangha, Bhagavata Shravana, hear from the Bhagavatam, Sri Murtira Sevana, worship the deity, and Mathura Vasa, visit a holy place like Mathura, or make your home a Mathura, because Mathura or Vrindavan, what is important there is Krishna is the center there. So make your home a Mathura, make your home a Mathura Vasa, and follow these 5 principles by which we will make spiritual advancement. You see, what is happening from all this, the original principles of the Bhagavatam, Ijecha Bhagavantam Yagna Kraturupam, which Bharata Maharaja did thousands and thousands of years ago. And Krishna explaining Swakarmana Tamabhyarcha 5,000 years ago. How the principle has been preserved, and it has been, how it has to be practiced in current circumstances was explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the form of Sankirtana Yagna. All other Yagna, this Pashu Yagna, Soma Yagna, Agnihotra Yagna, Darsh, none of these things are practical in this age. Who can perform these things? Where are the qualified Brahmanas? This talks about Chatur Hotra Vidhina. All these yagnas are performed with 4 kinds of priests. Those priests are called Ritviks. The priests are called the 4 kinds of, and there are Hota, very qualified Brahmanas who offer, and Udghata, who chant the mantras properly, Advaryu priests who have that potency, the spiritual potency by which they create fire in the yagna, not by using some matches or such thing, by the power of their mantra. And Brahma is the 4th kind of a Ritvijaha, Ritvik, who is the supervisor of all these things. So Chatur Hotra Vidhina, yagnas performed by these 4 kinds of priests are involved. Such qualified priests are not there in this age. Under these circumstances, Yagnai Sankirtana Prayahi. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced. And Srila Prabhupada said, now that there is one conversation by Prabhupada saying that in modern day there are so many machines. Now, we are not saying that you give up these machines. It's not practical. You continue pushing the buttons of your machine and chant Hare Krishna with that. You see? So, this is how Prabhupada made this, how one can be doing their business, one can be doing their whatever they are doing. Along with that, you also chant Hare Krishna. Also follow the principles of Krishna consciousness to whatever extent you can. By this, you can make progress. So, that original principles of Krishna consciousness, what it was intended, and to implement that in Kali Yuga on a global scale, in a modernized society, in an accelerated way, so that very quickly we come to the platform of understanding transcendental devotional service and make progress in that. All of this has been explained and given to us by Srila Prabhupada. It's actually not a small thing what Prabhupada has done. All these different principles of the Vedic literature and in its vast writings, what is the essence of all this? And how do we implement this in this age, in our present circumstances? So, this is the beautiful, very, very wonderful contribution of Srila Prabhupada. And we all are somehow come into this. Not that we were all experts, we analyzed all philosophies and concluded that this is the highest philosophy. What did we know? Even as born Indians, with all the confused understanding of devatas and so many gods and godmen and so many things. So this is the perspective in which we must see these things and be always very, very grateful to Guru and Krishna, because Guru Krishna prasade paya bhakti lata. Otherwise, the living entity is Brahmanda Brahmite, all going all over the universe in different forms of life. Very, very difficult to come to the right understanding. So, we'll stop here. Grancharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki nitai.